So I don't know. This might be, I mean, something to discuss in the next meetings when there are when there are more people. On Capacia, we will be actually. Is the stream on, Jerry?
Yes, it's
okay.
Double check here.
Oh, yeah. Well, you can come closer. When during Capacia, we do very interesting things. Like where we have very important people coming and talking with us. Now, one thing was kind of like we decided to visit. I think last time we visited the world's tallest building. That was in Taipei 101. And the whole point was to it's fun to visit something like that. But also I try to make use of those things by bringing in some interesting / important people. So we had two very important people in the hall after visiting the building. One was one of the two main architects who designed that building, right? And then the other one was a planner of Taipei who actually planned around that building to develop that develop that area of the city, which was kind of like a new downtown area kind of thing. A lot of young people go into that area and so on. Sometimes it's a little hard for our students to understand the significance of these things. Like we were sitting with these two guys, it's yeah, and it's the same here. We are with Eva today. No, it is. I mean, you're doing
designer of the tallest building in the world, Eva.
Sure, you're doing terrific work, and she did were you a part of the seminar last semester? No, right? Okay. So she did a seminar at the Virginia Beach Ball Center. It was an interdisciplinary seminar where a lot of students participated and from different disciplines. She ran it as a immersive learning experience where students learn about other people, which is in a different way what we're going to do. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your?
Not at all. I'm in the Department of Education, but a lot of my experience in education has been working with populations of children and families who are living in poverty in the United States. A lot of my work was done in Minnesota. But so, Delaware County here, where Ball State is not a lot of people know it, but Delaware County is the poorest county in the state of Indiana. Currently, 42% of the kids in Delaware County are living in poverty, about 38% of families. And so, is there somewhere I'm supposed to look, or can I just kind of...
I don't know. Jerry, is the voice okay?
Oh, it's fine. Yeah, the voice is fine. You might just looking at another student.
Okay. I just kind of...
The camera's in those.
Look at Rutgers.
And so when I had the opportunity to submit a proposal for the people that aren't here at Ball State, Virginia Ball Center for Creative Inquiry was established here in 1999 with a gift from one of the Ball people who originally granted money for the institution. But what they wanted to do was create a place that was off campus where students could really delve into a topic of interest and spend the whole semester doing that, paired with a faculty fellow. So it's an amazing model, and it's a fantastic opportunity, because what happens is I get released from all my responsibilities in the Department of Education, and I get to be off campus, and that's what I do for the whole semester. And also I get to choose, students get to apply, and I get to choose up to 15 students from all over campus who are interested in coming and doing this. And for them, it's their full load. So we work in this amazingly creative space off campus, and we don't live together, but we live together for days, and everyone certainly goes back and does what they do in the evenings, although as the project emerges, days get longer and longer and longer. But it is this immersive experience, and it's not just immersion in the content. the way that the subject is explored is from an interdisciplinary perspective. So in the seminar that I worked with, there were 10 different students who were from 10 different disciplines. Myself, I'm in from education. That was an 11th discipline. And so we looked at this from an interdisciplinary perspective, and also that it was a project that emerged. We knew that we were going to examine poverty in Delaware County. We knew that we were going to work with a community partner who had been doing some of this work. We knew that we were going to work with Indiana Public Radio because our goal was to give voice to people in the community who were living in poverty, who might be able to articulate their hopes and dreams for their families, what supports them, what gets in the way of them moving towards self-sufficiency. And so the project just really emerged as students got out in a very sort of ethnographic kind of way and just started talking with people. And then we would all come back together, and then they would have new questions, and then we would bring in people and talk with people. None of us were economics people, so we decided we needed to have an economist come in. So, that person would come in, and we would ask all our questions, and then we would go back out. And so what we ended up with were a series of radio programs for Indiana Public Radio where these voices and visions were profiled. We did a public service announcement about poverty in this community and how people might get involved, and that's currently airing on our public television station. And we did a short documentary that our community partner is using to solicit more involvement in eliminating poverty in Delaware County. But products aside, I think the most important thing that happened was that students connected with the community in a very different way than they would have if they had remained in a traditional on-campus experience. The community was their classroom. They were out learning from people, spending time with people. They were in neighborhoods. They were where people live, seeing the issues that directly affect their lives. And so for them, they became part of the community. And I think all of them continue to be involved in the initiative, even though the seminar came to an end in May. It hasn't ended for them. They continue to be involved and invested in this community. Several of them have expressed a desire to stay here after they graduate, which is different than what they would have thought going into it. So it was an amazing project. It was very student-driven. That was the best part of it, is that we had a very loose framework, but students made the decisions and the calls, and I got to be in the role of facilitating and just keeping up with them as best I could. But it was great. So, thanks for asking me to share.
Yeah, that's great.
I'd like to talk about it.
Yeah, we want to hear about it. Do you guys have any questions? Eva?
Well, I think how it relates to what I'm here to talk about today is just that for many of the students, they had never really encountered poverty as anything that was part of their lives. They might have grown up in a suburban or rural but middle-class environment, and for them it was really a experience and immersion in a different culture, in a different kind of way. Because people's lives, we don't always think about socioeconomic status from a cultural lens, but there was a lot for them to learn about people and the decisions that they make, and the values and beliefs that they have, some very similar, some very different, based on the situations that they find themselves in. So it was a cultural experience as well.
So it seems like we might not have enough people to play the game. So,
I don't think so.
So maybe you want to keep continuing with what you wanted to talk to them. I don't know.
It's up to you. If you want me to come back at a different time and talk to people, I can do that. Or
You sure?
Completely up to you.
It would be nice to play the game and also talk. Yeah. But I just hate to waste your time.
That's,
because,
you know what,
Not the architect of that tall building, right?
that's right. See, that's where that comes in handy.
I can get you
I
back.
don't even have 10 minutes. No, but I'd love to come back when there are more people here, because I think some of the things that we were going to do really illustrate some things about culture and how culture operates, and that there are some parts of culture that are easily discernible because we can see the differences, but culture is a much deeper structure than that, and the values and beliefs that people have informed their behavior, and it's important to get at those things instead of just these surface structure things that we tend to think of when we think of culture.
So Eva, I also do engage in post-colonial debates and subaltern studies and so on. And one of the issues that they say is kind of like, maybe we cannot give, can we represent the people, which, I know you didn't mean it that way, but giving voice to, giving voice to people, or do we open up space for them to have their own voice?
Well, and I hope that's, perhaps I misspoke, because I think what we did was open up, and it wasn't, it wasn't a situation where we were interpreting what people were saying and sharing that. I think what we did through the radio programs was maybe frame a situation, but it was people who spoke. It was like you said, opening up a space where that dialogue could happen, and respecting that people feel very strongly about themselves and their lives and have some very distinct ideas about what they would like to see happen. And so we listened for the semester. That was the most important work that we did, was listening.
Does anyone else have such experience, working with community, empowering them or opening up space for them to speak?
What was the response from the community itself to the project?
I think because we worked with a community partner who had some credibility in the community, that facilitated the extent to which we could access some people. Although that was not exclusively. So from that end, there were already some built-in kinds of regular events and things like that we could kind of tap into. But that was not always the case, because we had students who really just went out on their own into the community. And I think with good reason, a lot of people mistrust, what are you doing? Why are you here? Why, you must want something, because surely you just don't care what I think. People aren't used to that. And so part of the work during the semester was building that level of trust. And it wasn't just like walking in and saying, with a microphone and saying, hey, we're doing a radio show, and what do you think about being poor in Delaware County? It was hanging out with people and, learning from them and inviting them to come and speak with us. And students attended some of their church services, or, and so I think that with respect, a very good faith effort was made to build relationships, and that's what this was about too. It wasn't about, hey, we're here, we've got 16 weeks to do this, can you give us what we need? This was about building relationships with people, and these are relationships that continue to exist. And I think without that relationship building, what we would have done would not have been possible. And even if it would have been done really in the wrong way, because it was about, I want to know you. What's happening here is important to me. This community is important to me, and I want to know you, and I want to learn from you. But like I said, that's met with a lot of mistrust, and A lot of times, the only times that people go into communities of poverty is because they want to do some kind of research and then they want to get what they get and then they bolt and then they never come back. It's like, thank you very much, and people are like, hey, and people get tired of that. It's like, first of all, because they never learn what happened. They give their opinions, they give their whatever, and then people leave and write a report that maybe they never even see, and it's like, well, what happened for my community? And so I think people have good reason to be mistrustful, but that building relationships was a big part of what we did. And I think on the whole the project was very well received. We did a community showcase at the end where we talked about the work and the programs were aired. And we had about 250 people from the community attend. In fact, we had very few people from the university, which is kind of sad, but the majority of the people that came were people in the community with whom we had worked, and I thought that was a very positive indication of how well it was received.
So, how did it affect them? I mean, you said that you had this opening at the end and you show their work, but, how did it help the poor people, I guess, in the community? What did the study do for them,
Sure. No, I think that's a really important question. One of the things that our community sponsor is working with here in Delaware County is it's a national model, but it's only happening in about 46 communities across the country, and it's called Circles of Support, and it was originally begun by a group that's called Move the Mountain Leadership Center that's out of Ames, Iowa. And the way that Circles of Support work, there's a lot of different things that this community sponsor does. They hold weekly dinners where people who are living in poverty and people who are not living in poverty in the community come together. And it's a chance for fellowship. It's a chance the meal is free. You don't have to sign up for it in advance. You just, you show up and you dialogue about issues in the community because the sponsor that we worked with, who's called Teamwork for Quality Living, they really reject the notion that people who are living in poverty can pull themselves up by their own bootstraps. They with the way that things are economically, with some of the conditions of poverty, they really feel like there needs to be other supports in place in order for people to effectively move towards self-sufficiency in a lasting way. And they also reject the notion that people who aren't living in poverty can devise policy and come up with things to address issues that they don't know anything about, so that these two groups must come together and dialogue across the table. Students helped a lot with those dinners. Students prepared meals. We were able to contribute financially a little bit to that effort. But mainly, they got to sit across the table and listen to people. I think they were able to profile some of the issues that people brought to the table through the radio programs. But this Circles of Support notion goes a step further than just these dinners. What happens is people who are living in poverty in the community who are interested in and motivated in moving towards self-sufficiency, what this community organization does is take that person, work with that person to articulate what they call a dream path. This is where I want to go. This is what I want for myself and my family. And then that organization pairs that person very carefully with community allies, 3 or 4 community allies who will support that person in moving towards self-sufficiency. I happen to be an ally in one of those circles. It's a new effort. There are only 5 of those circles happening right now in Muncie. The preliminary research on these circles is really amazing nationwide. In a relatively short period of time, maybe 10 to 24 months, people are moving closer to self-sufficiency. They're tripling their incomes. We're seeing like a 300% return on every dollar that's invested, and that it is working. And right around, like 24 to 36 months, people are successfully, moving towards self-sufficiency. So what we were able to do was, as a group, we were able to recruit more allies for those circles because there's no shortage of captains, the person who's living in poverty. There's a lot of people that want to do that. But as a community, we need to mobilize more people to be allies. And I really like the model because it's not the notion of these allies who are middle class or upper class people coming in and saying, well, if you only did that and you did that, then I'll show you how to get fixed. It's this person saying, hey, this is my dream. And these people serving in an encouraging role, helping people persist through discouraging times, helping connect them with community resources that they might not be aware of. The captain in my circle is self-employed. She works about 8 different jobs and she still only makes about $12,000 a year. And she's a single parent with a child. She needed a way to help promote herself more. We were able to link her up with a graphic design student here that wanted to do some community work and build her portfolio. So they worked together to, come up with promotional materials and things like that. So it's about connecting people with the community. A lot of times people who are living in poverty are very isolated. A lot of times they don't see they're sort of worn down, just by the day-to-day. What happens at those dinners is really amazing because those are opportunities for people to share successes that they're having. And then what we heard from people was they say, wow, if that could happen for that person, maybe something like that could happen for me. So it's, giving people permission to dream. And so we were, I think, very, very successful in linking with churches to recruit allies, in this public service announcement now that's being aired all over WIPB that's encouraging people to get involved. And this has resulted in what we are expecting to be a very, very large gift from Indiana FSSA to support this, so that now Bloomington is interested, South Bend is interested, and Indianapolis is interested, and all those people will come to Muncie and learn how to do this from what's happening here. And so I think the students did a fantastic job of helping further the momentum of that initiative. And befriending a whole lot of people.
So are now those other, like you talked about 250 people showed up, like maybe there are more poor people who get interested in your project.
Absolutely.
And are they approaching you?
Yeah, absolutely. And then those are the people that begin to come to the dinners then, and then after you've been at a dinner for a while, then you think, hey, maybe I could have my own circle, so I see our project as, doing a lot of public education. It was kind of from the outside in and from the inside out. It was public education to bring more people inside, but it was also getting to know the inside circle so that you might best be able to do that other work.
So what are these dinners like? If I may add something, like I grew up in Sri Lanka, like if I want to meet somebody in a remote area, your ability to go and sort of like sit on a little rock and sort of like sip a cup of tea with them, would be like much more important than kind of like taking them to some place, that you would like. So what were these dinners like, and how did you connect to the people?
The dinners are really amazing. They happen at the same place every week. They're in the basement of the First Baptist Church, although it's a very secular, but it's secular. It's not.
Yeah.
It's just that they grant the space. And quite frankly, if you walk in and you walk around and you think who's living in poverty and who's not living, and you don't know, and it's just a chance to just sit down and share a meal with somebody, and hey, how you doing? And some people you know and some people you don't know. We kind of have ambassadors who welcome new people and help them find a friend or a place to sit. And so there's dinner, and then there's childcare so that the children can go, and then generally there's either some type of a program, but more importantly, just some kind of opportunity to discuss an issue in the community. Maybe it's transportation, maybe it's education, but a chance for people to talk about barriers and then come up with some kind of action plan to address those barriers. So it's social activism as well. It gets political sometimes. The bus company in town was getting ready to eliminate some bus service that really was helping people get to jobs, and at the same time they were providing what they call the tipsy trolley to help students who'd been drinking at the bars get home safely. So it was kind of a public relations nightmare. But, through those dinners, people came up with an action plan and went and presented to the bus company and got that program reinstated. So, it's a little bit of everything. I mean, it's friendship, it's fellowship, but it's also realizing that change can happen and being part of that change to make good things happen in the community. So they're amazing. It's just an incredibly positive energy as people share the successes that they have and people celebrate those successes, but also, you know, talk about discouragement and barriers and then work toward change so that it will be it'll be less that way for other people. So
during Cafe too, Eva, we had half of our students stayed with us near a station in Mumbai called Andheri Station, and there's a kind of an underpass to kind of like cross to the other side of the street. And you know, I stayed with the other half in a different place, but you know, we go back and forth. So I used to cross this also. And there was this old man, you know, with a little scale, who would like you to weigh yourself, you know, find your weight, and give, I don't know, something like a rupee or something, you know, like which is absolutely nothing for an American in that sense. But the guy doesn't speak, you know, in any language that we can communicate with. It's the main thing is a smile and maybe a little bored, and we pick it up. And sometimes, you know, like I've just weighed myself to have this connection. Anyway, there was this one student. So anyway, apparently he disappeared one day. You know, he wasn't there for about a week, and then after a week, Wes told me that when he was going with one of the students, he all of a sudden saw this guy and hugged him, you know, and like we can see, it's amazing the kind of like connections that people have made, you know. All of a sudden he was kind of like crying and hugging him.
So good to see you.
Yeah, so
we were worried about you.
We were worried about
Well,
you.
and that's another thing that happens at those dinners.
Yeah.
Is that people know that they are part of something, that they're part of the community. They know that people are glad to see them. I mean, it's not this like it's a genuine thing that happens.
Exactly.
You know, people walk in and say, "Good to see you," or "You weren't here last week. I was worried about you. How's everything going?" And what we hear from people is that sometimes just someone saying, like, "It's so good to see you. I was hoping you were going to be here," can get them through a week of discouragement. You know, and so it's those kinds of connections, I think, that are just. I mean, for me, I say I go every Thursday. It's like going to a family gathering. It's like, "Hey, how are you? So good to see you." You know, and everybody's, you know, and like I said, it's not like everything's wonderful, but you know, someone will say, "I had a really shitty week. This is what happened," but it's an extended family, and like you said, it's like, hey, you know, and what does that mean for someone to have that sense of belonging? You know, it's critical. I think it's really critical.
I also had a student. I mean, that we had a couple of students who were having a lot of trouble during cafe who were just, you know, and one student whom we thought was absolutely unable to connect to the place. Came back. I mean, he did a fabulous job coming back and sort of like going to Washington D.C. and working for non-profit organization and so on. But anyway, during that time, it was hard. You know, his parents got divorced. I think he came to know the day he was leaving for South Asia. I mean, it was bad. So when he came back, when we were doing the presentation, he was telling that in India, somebody told him, if you want to understand India, half of you have to die, you know. And I think at the beginning, like, he was a little worried about that half that might die, you know. Like, but later on, I mean, he was talking about it like, well, it's okay, you know, and so on. How do you feel like a statement like that? You know, if you want to be a part of us, half of you will have to die. I mean, how did the students feel about it? How did you?
Well, I will say, and I'm sure is the case, you know, with you, as I've talked with you about Capvasia, I mean, this was not a comfortable thing. I mean, although there was a lot of joy and celebration, you know, of the work. This was not an easy semester for these students at all, as they In fact, early on, it was getting to know each other. We traveled to Chicago and spent a week in sub-zero temperatures, seeing, in communities where blocks of people were laying on the ground, sleeping outside. And they went through a period, and I'm not saying that it was a short period, but I'm saying they got really angry. They got very disillusioned, very angry. It's like, what's going on? How can I be 21 years old and not know that this is happening in this country? They're very angry, and you have to kind of harness that. And what do you do with that? And how do you help them, use that in some kind of productive way? But we came back from Chicago, and I think for a week there wasn't much laughter. They were just kind of deer in the headlights. It was like, it was just kind of like, where am I? What is going on here? How come I didn't know about this? How come people have been lying to me? They felt deceived. They felt like they'd been sold a bill of goods about what the United States of America is, and they bought it. And now all of a sudden that doesn't make sense anymore. And so what do? How do you reconstruct your lens that you've been seeing? So you have to kind of deconstruct that and say, like, okay, now what I'm seeing doesn't match with what my brain told me was true or what other people told me was true. And so now I have to kind of erode that, and then I have to rebuild something new, but I don't know what that is. I don't know what that is. So it's definitely a process. And there were moments where the group just kind of got tired, and just kind of, needed time to break apart and deal with things personally, before they could come back and re-energize and begin, towards something to put those pieces back together. But that's tough work, That's
Actually, I think this dualistic thinking that we are trying to use is also a problem, because to understand people and situations like this, because one of the students told me, before I went on Cap Asia, I thought United States is great and everybody else sucks. Like now I go back and say everybody else is so great and US sucks. I was just telling her, isn't there any more other ways to look at it?
We're trained to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, that sucks, not this sucks.
Yeah. Kim, do you have anything you want to add to this?
Well, I'm pretty intrigued about the study that did happen in Muncie, just obviously because New Jersey has some incredibly poor areas, most notably Camden and Newark and Patterson. But it's really true. Like you say, in order to understand India, half of you must die. And it's really, I guess it's just kind of a process, at least it was for me, of letting go of everything that you knew, and what you thought you knew, what you were told that you knew. And I think for me it was a bit shocking to see how the U.S. isn't always bathed in such a golden halo, looking from the other side of the pond, and but really and truly, I guess, India really, I think, assaults you from all sides, just because, the poverty isn't hidden. It was really a reality check. If you really, if you choose not to see poverty in the United States, you don't see it. But in India, at least, it's ever present. It doesn't matter where you are. You see it everywhere. And like you say, it's, once you're there for a while and you have patterns and you get to know the people on the block, I stayed just kind of in a lower middle class neighborhood. And I remember my daughter was sick one day, so we actually weren't out and about, so they didn't see us. And so the lady we used to buy our water from, she's like, oh, I didn't see you yesterday. Is everything okay? So it's like, oh, my daughter was sick, and she was like, well, is she okay? And it's just all these different things, and it's just, I don't think that we tend to connect with other people in the U.S. outside of our, circle of friends, people that we know, very well. If somebody that you see on the street or, just like around, school or wherever, you go, most people don't care if they see you, they don't see you or anything else. They honestly, they can't pick you out from, the other 150, 200 people that they know. But, definitely it's interesting, to say the least, with Cap Asia. But, I think, with Cap Asia, like you said, I think it really forces people to confront what they know or what they think they know, versus maybe perhaps what the reality of the situation is. And, always having to go into it at least with a little bit of a more open perspective. And, people are people regardless of where they're from, what language they speak, what religion they are, what country they are. But, you really have to strip everything down just to the mere, human level to really be able to do that. So.
That can be challenging now, some of those things are hard to let go of,
Oh, absolutely.
Some of those things, and that's what I have found with students is that some of the things they can give up, but some of the things they just,
Sure.
they've been around for a long time and they believe these things and have held them dear. I think some of the students started questioning some faith issues. It was just kind of like everything got thrown up, and you didn't know what was going to come back down. It's uncomfortable.
Definitely. And I think also, within, the impoverished community, at least in the United States, there really is a huge mistrust of the rest of the people, saying, well, you're just telling me that, if I work harder or if I do this or I'll do this, I'll be successful and I'll be off of the system. I spent several years in the system myself. And, it is not easy. There's just, there's no simple one way to overcome it. And I think that that's where, we have failed. And so because we have failed, it just kind of gets set aside and people just don't escape from it. And then also, people who are fortunate enough not to be in either the welfare system or live below the poverty line or right at it, they don't see it. They've moved on. And, it's unfortunate. I think really, with the welfare reform of '91, I think that really kind of thrust some things out in the limelight, but still it didn't really make it any better.
No, we can say we have less people on welfare, but we have
Yeah,
more,
you can say
we
you have
have
less
more poor people.
But you have more people that are living right at the line. But did it really dramatically change? No. For most people, it didn't. And so, it's kind of a mixed bag. But it's, trying to connect the two, figuring out how both people can help each other, and lifting everybody up. Because everybody gains. It's not just the one side. It's both sides.
Oh, absolutely. And this whole model is based on, it's a reciprocity model where, everybody's contributing at those dinners, everybody's doing everything. And in fact, in the circle that I'm in, it would be, depending upon the day of the week, it'd be hard to determine who's the captain and who are the allies, because the captain does as much support of me in my work as I do of her. So it's all those lines get blurred as they should, and it's not about middle-class patronage, which I think a lot of poverty programs are about. Middle-class patronage, it's, go in and do good, and then you get to go back to your place and not think about it anymore, and you've done your deed. Not that there's anything wrong with people, performing those kinds of acts, but sometimes without that sort of friendship and understanding about things, I think it can be middle-class patronage, and I don't think that necessarily leads to any kind of lasting change.
Yeah, I think the tendency is that you're just reduced to a number or a figure or a statistic, and not as a person who has individual needs. And I think that sometimes a lot of that is overlooked, and it's like, okay, make this much an hour. You have a degree, you don't have a degree. You have a high school diploma, you don't. How many children do you have? What kind of child support do you get? Do you get, all of these things. So basically, in a nutshell, your life gets boiled down to a bunch of numbers and statistics.
Right, and that's one of the quotes. One of the quotes that I remember from someone in the radio programs, and she just said, she said you lose the very essence of being human, I mean, and in fact, a lot of the people that you are connecting with are people that are paid to be doing that, I mean, and so that sort of, friendship and support and encouragement from someone who's, it's not their job to do that, and the way that the system is set up and the way that numbers are and caseloads are, it's virtually impossible. I mean, there are a lot of people that shouldn't be doing that work to begin with, but
I think poverty also, I wonder, this is something that I've dealt with over a longer period of time, but I don't think I fully understand. Especially, I'll tell you an interesting story. So, they have this joke in India where there's this guy who's kind of like sleeping on in front of a store, like this social worker comes and say, hey, get up, I'm going to have to, hey, get up, I'm going to help you to find a job, you need to be working, you're just sleeping here. And then he asks, what should I be doing? And you should be working. And he asks for what? Then you can earn some money. So what? Then you can have a home, and then you can have a car. They keep on going and so on. Then he asks, so for what? Then you can have a vacation, and you can rest. And he's asking, what do you think I'm doing right now? Why do you have to go through that entire thing to sort of like get here? It's interesting. It has to do with Amartya Sen in his development as freedom. He's talking about so much. We have totally mistaken. I think the U.S. hegemony has put this whole idea of in some ways saying you need to have money in order to do A, B, and C. That means to get a good education, to live long, and all those things. What Amartya Sen is showing is you really we have forgotten the fact that we need this to do that. We just pursuing money as the end instead of the means, and then we have forgotten the fact that this is originally we started doing this because we wanted to have a better life, and now we are sacrificing our lives to sort of like earn money. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, that
becomes a quality versus quantity argument. So.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I think it's really important in this model and critical in this model that the person who is the person who runs the circle is the person who's living in poverty, and that is the person that decides. It's not somebody saying what you need is a car that's less than 3 years old and a 3-bedroom apartment uptown. It's that person, and those dream paths can be as simple as I want to be able. I want a boat to go out on the lake once a week, whatever it is that this person identifies as, something that is important to them, that they value, that they want to work toward, and not the other way around, because that is a recipe for not success.
There's no engagement.
Right.
There's no engagement when people make choices for you. So, and it's just, what motivation do you have when somebody is making the choices for you? It's really, there's no investment that you make of yourself into it other than just kind of going through the motions to do this in order to get that.
What business does anybody have telling you what
Sure.
you want? What you really want is what I have. I don't think so.
But that's a lot of how it functions most of the time. So the people telling you what you need or what you should do, and this is how you're going to do it, and rather than what I want or what I need or what's right for me. So.
Sure. Well, yeah, and that's how policies get made and things like that don't work, and then we blame people who are in those situations when in fact nobody ever asked or nobody ever listened in making those things, and so when they don't work, it's not because of a deficiency of people, it's because it wasn't what was required in the situation.
So what are your thoughts, Heidi? What are your thoughts?
I was really encouraged by the story about as far as reinstating the bus service, because my main interest is in transportation and specifically transit and walking, which definitely ties in with a lot of issues you're talking about. So is that still ongoing? Like, are they, is that service still?
It is. It was a service. It was called Job Connection, and it was an on-demand service that people who worked odd hours and things like that. Because our service keeps getting cut back and cut back and cut back, and so. But yeah, they completely stopped what they were doing in eliminating it, and I'm not quite sure how they were able to divert funding in a different way to cover it. But they heard very clearly from the community, and the other thing that happened because of that is that more people learned about it, and so then then the usage went up too, which was probably one of the issues why they were looking at cutting it. Place. But yeah, absolutely, that's been maintained. So we felt really good about that.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking, like, are there a lot of so-called wealthy people or middle-class people who are interested in helping those poor? I don't know.
Oh no, I understand your question.
I think, like, from my perspective, like in Uzbekistan, probably not many wealthy people are interested in helping poor people. I don't know how about in the US.
In the US?
Yeah.
Well, the thing is, I think when we spend, as a community, we're spending over $1 million a month in food stamps alone in Delaware County. I mean, I think when people understand that it's not just somebody else's issue, that it's everybody's issue. I mean, the wealth of our community is dependent upon not just me being successful, but other people being successful as well. And I think not everybody feels that way. Some people are very, very happy to have their money in their nice things and live in their neighborhood, and they don't ever go to those parts of town, so they don't have to see it and they don't have to deal with it. But I think one of the things that we've been doing is going around to a lot of service organizations, to a lot of churches, and just kind of sharing the stories. I think a lot of times too, people are afraid. It's like, I'll write a check and I'll send my check because then I don't really have to see anybody or meet anybody or talk to anybody, because that could be scary, and what would they be like, and do I really want to meet a poor person? And like I said, I think coming to the dinners, it's just like a real reality check. It's like, it's just a bunch of people in a room, It's not like, what will I say to somebody who's poor?
I think it's also very dangerous to. I think this whole discourse about they need help and we can help.
That's right.
This is a very dangerous discourse, because most of my studies I was trying to figure out when I started doing my PhD, I was trying to figure out why did they build the way they build. I mean, you can see the same question asked again in Cappadocia. This is in regard to Sri Lanka. And one of the things that one of the things out of many things that I saw during my research was that when the colonials came, I mean, some of these people are very educated people. They rewrote. They became very fascinated with the Sri Lankan culture. And they started writing. They did that same thing in India and Indonesia and all these places. But the thing is now, I mean, when you look at it, they rewrote the history in different ways. They didn't write the history. They rewrote the history in a way that they can understand and within their own norms and classifications and so on. And in a different way, this is not the history of the local people. It's the same thing to say, hey, to have our view to say, this is what you need, and so on. I mean, this is what Eva is kind of trying to sort of cross, and we are trying to cross. Can we cross this boundary? I mean, planners do this too, we have something called a public participation. This is a very progressive component, aspect of planning, as opposed to planners being in an office and sending a plan out. But the thing is, who's participating in whose process? Can we actually cross this boundary and participate in the people's processes? What do they think? Where do they want to go? Because we want them to participate in our process, we can actually have a plan with a goal and objectives and a vision and all these things, which we call rational planning, which is still there. And is this even valid? If all different people want to do different things, can we even have a plan of that nature? Do we have to even begin to rethink what planning is about, and design is about, So I think we are at a stage where we need to do this. I mean, if I may add another after this one, I had a very good, a very, very bright student from MIT, a planning student. She contributed a lot, she learned a lot and so on. At the beginning when we were doing our project in New Delhi, this was Cap Asia 3, and she would make like 3 appointments with Delhi Development Authority people and meet with them. This is tremendously difficult to do in India. I mean, she was so smart and great. But then I was telling her, it really doesn't matter how much you learn from Delhi Development Authority, because there's documents, you can talk to them, they have a particular view. Unless you keep going to this community that you're supposed to learn, and because the community also responds. Community is not like objects. I mean, it's not a community of objects. These are community of subjects. People think, people react, people act. Like these are people. So when people come, they wonder, are these guys from the World Bank? Because if they're from the World Bank, we need to kind of tell our story in a particular way so that we can get something. I mean, who are these people? So people are not objects. People are subjects. They respond and they'll figure out what to say and what not to say based on who these people are. So unless we become a part of them, unless we can, I don't know, circle of what?
Support, yeah.
Circle of support, or unless we can be a part of them, you cannot know about these people. You can't just go 3 times and get to know these people and document, which a lot of people do. We have this many master's theses done we are doing a survey, we analyze, we go to this big computer, give spew out a lot of numbers, and we know the place. I absolutely don't know. Yeah.
Right.
Here is a comment from one of our remote participants, John. He is from University of Toronto. So he says, to follow up on Michal's comment, I also think the term empowerment can have the same connotation of prescription. I feel like we have often used the term without necessarily qualifying it.
Excellent. No, excellent. This is the kind of discussion we need. It's empowerment. At one point, empowerment could also mean that I can empower you. There could be a power situation built into that. So that's absolutely true. Yeah. And how could we get beyond this power, relationship? Yeah.
Well, and that, those issues of power and privilege are huge. And yeah, just because I have power doesn't mean that I can give that.
Exactly.
Just by sitting next to you, somehow I'm going to transfer the power. But something else you said made me think about something. Yeah, but this notion, you have to be careful, I think. You do have to be very careful, and it's a very fine line because, I can, come in as a do-gooder and want to put my stuff on you, and it's hard not to.
Exactly.
It's really, really hard not to. And I see that people are, with varying degrees of success, can do this ally thing without getting their stuff, in it. And, or if you just, or maybe you can think about, but the goal is not to make you like me, and the goal is not to go into a community and make that community look like your community, or that, that there has to be this, you have to be able to listen so skillfully, and sit on your, and keep your mouth closed a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Which for some of us is more difficult than others, but
until you become a part of that system, right?
But it's learning. So much of it is learning.
Any thoughts, Jan?
Well, I came in kind of late, so I came for very long. But I think, as you were saying, listening is really important, and trying to reach beyond our own preconceived ideas about what the solutions to their problems are, or even what the problems are. It's really important.
Well, I think too, as maybe it's part of American culture, but also we want a quick fix to things. We want something to we want to try it and we want it to work quickly. And if it doesn't, then we want to try something else. And then, we do this with education. We try a curriculum test scores, don't go up that year. Then we try something else, and then that doesn't work. But we're not a patient people. And I don't think that we always have this great understanding that things that matter take lots of time to happen, whether that's letting a community find its own voice or plan or things like that. We want to get in and get it done. And that's not always how change happens. In fact, I think a lot of times it isn't.
And a key idea, Eva, I think you highlighted also, maybe like in many planning projects this come up, this issue of isolation, and I think it usually comes up as like these poor communities are isolated. I mean, I can see that if you look at it from our standpoint, like they are isolated because they can't find jobs, there's no information, etc., etc., etc. They can't know about educational opportunities and so on and so on. But also at the same time, maybe another way to think about it, maybe we are isolated too. Maybe we are isolated from the majority of the community. I mean, but right now, I'm working on a project on Asian urbanization and planning. It seems like if you read anything about Asian urbanization and planning, it's all about big projects, mega projects. Pudong, I mean, this great area that's been built in Shanghai and etc. etc. Which means like they're only talking about 10% of the people. 90% of the people are left out, and I wonder whether we are isolated as well, because I mean in that sense, or because the other guys are kind of like a majority. So it's an interesting. I mean, I'm just contemplating on this issue of isolation. Like, how do we? I mean, it seems like a significant issue. I mean, I'm not suggesting anything. I'm highlighting the significance.
Well, I think it's interesting because I grew up in a culture that, like, the poor people and the rich people lived together, right. And you couldn't see the difference between, your neighbor could be richer than you, but yet you still had a house that maybe even looked like them, just because it was the difference between the poor and the rich, the line, it was just really hard to distinguish, I guess. When, like in the United States, when you go into like a large city like Chicago, the north side is the rich and the south side is the poor. And that's how like pretty much every city in this country is set up. So I think that was like a really huge shock, I guess, because...
Where did you grow?
Poland.
I mean, it's a shocker for some of our students, like walking in India, say in Mumbai or something, like we walk through a kind of like a little posh area, as they call it, and then we go over mud puddles and so on, like which, looks like crummy and bad and all these things, and then all of a sudden we are at the best restaurant in Mumbai, I mean, you go inside, it's like a palace, I mean, so it's, I mean, as you're saying, I mean, in most countries in the world, I mean, you don't have this segregation.
Segregation.
Yeah.
Right. And planned segregation in many
instances.
instances.
Yes. How about Korab?
I would say that probably there are some kind of like distinctions, like nowadays, especially like in Tashkent, like rich people are trying to move in suburb area. So like when people are speaking about districts, they can know approximately what kind of people do live there. But
where does that music come from?
I feel like we should be jogging on the beach.
It's our tech cell phone.
It is a cell phone.
yes, but there are also like the same kind of thing like in Poland. I don't know, like there are some people who are just by chance happen to be among lots of people surrounding. Just maybe one household has left being poor compared to others.
Yeah.
I think this segregation is happening now as after independence, the difference between poor and rich become more evident in Uzbekistan. Before, true, in Soviet time we hadn't seen such a huge distinction between poor. Everybody was like the same. Everybody had the same apartment, probably the same furniture, the same TV, almost everything the same was. But nowadays, it's changing. We can see the difference.
So we can move to the others. So yeah, Eva, thanks for coming. Yeah, and I'm going to bug you again to sort of like come back.
Good. No, I enjoyed this. Was even better.
Yeah.
I enjoyed the dialogue.
So we're going to get some other business done here.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Yeah. That's good. And
Thanks. I enjoyed it. Yes, it was cool.
you predict a little bit more than. Wow, you need screwdrivers for this.
Yeah, this is one.
Do you carry that, honey?
I do, just because of this.
Broke out the leather jacket today.
There's enough how it would just like smoosh it together.
Yeah,
That's
Probably
what
why they didn't want it this
I know. In architecture, they might be a little bit more creative, doing something strange.
Thank you. Thank you.
Take care. Thanks
Down
again.
here fast enough.
Okay, I think we're going to few things. I think we're going to reconsider this meeting time, and I'm going to ask everyone to send when they are not available, so that we can figure out a good meeting time. I think Monday morning maybe it's becoming a little difficult as it gets colder and so on. I don't know. Okay, that's outside, right? Okay. Let's focus our attention on organizational issues. I've already asked you to have your passport ready, and the passport should be valid for 6 months after you finish your journey, right? Wherever you're going. And if you're planning to stay back, people are welcome to stay back in Asia and do whatever they would like, and your passport should be valid for 6 months beyond the date of return. That's usually a requirement by a lot of countries. Just double check. If you don't have your passport, get it ready soon, because we'll be soon applying for the Indian visa. For U.S. passport holders, I think you only need a visa to India, because I've been to Indonesia recently and I didn't need a visa. I just
Everywhere else is just a stamp when you get in. That's it.
So, but we need to apply for the Indian visa. So get your passport ready, and then I also sent out any questions about passports? They okay?
Very good.
And just check whether anyone is kind of like asking any question. Okay.
Do you need an actual copy of it, or?
No, I think Hikoyat also has asked for the front page. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, the one with information and so on. If you could send it, mail it, or fax it, you can also fax it. If you're faxing it, our fax number is 765-285-2648, and you can say, "Attention, Hikoyat." Yeah.
One less thing for you, right?
I'll let her take care of that. Yeah. And for those of you here, so make a photocopy and sort of like give it to her. Great, thanks. And I've also sent a message about inoculations, and I need to stress again, inoculations. There are recommended inoculations by the government of the United States. You might want to check on that. And we all take different inoculations. Some don't want to be sick at all, and some take risks. Some don't want to take too much medicine into the body. So there are different kinds of people. So you might want to visit the website. Maybe even print out those pages which says these diseases are there. I mean, there are pandemics, epidemics, and whatever the terminology is, and take to the doctor and sort of like make some decision and start getting your inoculations soon. So this is probably the last time I'm going to talk about both of those items. Now, it's time for us to look into the curriculum and also travel and money and these kind of issues. Let me start with the curriculum. I'm going to send out the curriculum ASAP, like this week. I'm going to send out the curriculum as an attachment. And it might be a little bit tentative because I'm still listing courses. So I'll get to that in a second. So first of all, I'll be sending the curriculum or curricula, because there are two for undergraduates and graduates separately. So so you know what the curricula is. And of course, if you want the other one, I can send it also. So you can have a look at both of them if you want to have fun with it. It's basically, like it's a semester program, so it's a semester load of classes. Cap Asia has its own curriculum, because for undergrads we teach a history, theory, practice classes and a studio, and for graduates it's a history, theory and an independent study and a studio. Studio is a common one that everybody takes part in. That's what brings Cap Asia together. And as I've discussed earlier, and as you've read from the internet, we have two components called building to learn and planning to learn. I'll get to that in a moment. And also the history and theory for undergraduates and history theory for graduates. That will be run as a seminar. We'll have readings and discussions. I don't know how this is going to work out in Sri Lanka. In India last year, we had our seminar in the morning and the studio in the afternoon. I mean, the students kind of got together in the afternoon. And of course, it's not so easy. It's easy for me to say that, and when you're there, you will see it's not so easy. We'll have to be very adaptive, into various situations, because we'll be traveling and various things will be happening there. Any questions? Are there any questions? No? Okay. Courses. What will happen is, so this is the Cap Asia curriculum. Cap Asia curriculum is not in the books. You can't get credit for that. So I have to list classes which, like the various departments agree, okay, we can list these classes for you. That is kind of like classes that are on the catalog. So you can get real credits, on a transcript for those things. So I'm currently listing these courses. Once the courses are listed with the registrar, and so on, you can actually register for those classes. You can't register yet because the three departments are still listing them, and none of them have raised any issues. But who knows? I'll wait for a week or so. So the curriculum, if I send it before they list the classes, the catalog classes would be tentative, and I'll update that soon. And for Ball State students, you cannot register online. You will have to go to the registrar's office to do this. And Hikoyat will have to figure out. I can't remember how we dealt with it. How we dealt with this in regard to the guest students. Okay, and you might want to let everyone know. So courses, they will be listed hopefully this week. I think planning courses will be listed this week, and the others will come a little slowly. Questions?
No, that was like the main question that we had, the courses.
Was that?
Yeah, that was the main question that I actually
Okay.
really wanted to.
And then I'm going to send, I'm making reservations, airline reservations right now. I'm trying to get everybody on the same plane and et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's not me, the travel agent. So what I'm going to do is once I receive the itinerary, these days, these are all electronic stuff, like I can forward this to you. And I want you to double check whether, I will probably send send something to cross-check with, so that you can double-check whether we are all on the same page. I mean, I am going over those things, but then everything gets muddled up because I'm looking at like 20 of those. But anyway, I mean, I'll forward those to you.
So we could fly out, like you sent us before, we could fly out of the city that we want to fly out?
Yes.
Okay.
The idea is the basic, we fly from Chicago to Hong Kong, Chicago to Singapore,
Okay.
and then Singapore to Colombo. That's what we do. So people who are flying from other cities can fly from those cities instead of Indianapolis to Chicago, and hopefully we will all meet, except for Bruce. I think Bruce, I'm going to get him to fly directly to Hong Kong, where we have a stop there.
Okay.
So he can cross the pond and meet us there, and yeah. So we'll see how this works. You know, I need to get to know, and if you have anything that I need to attend to, you need to let me know. So that's why I'm sending the itineraries. I mean, especially for you as well, right? Questions? No? Okay. There's a slight change in the tentative itinerary that I sent. This is not about the airline itinerary, the large itinerary. Instead of going to Phuket first, we're going to go to Banda Aceh first. So that's why we are flying via Singapore. In Singapore, we'll break the journey, and we'll go to Banda Aceh. That's the northern tip of, I don't know whether it's called northern. It's northwestern tip of Sumatra, where more than 140,000 people died of tsunami. So we'll go there and do the workshop. And so these two components will be switched, Banda Aceh and Phuket. So the basic itinerary hasn't changed, but only the two places have shifted. And of course, it is also the time to begin to collect money, I guess. So I would expect, was that the 31st? Is that the first installment? Yeah. So I would expect receiving some checks, and so that I can begin to deposit, and I think, you know, I might even have to kind of like buy these tickets soon. So once everything is finalized, we need to work hard, work quickly to sort of like get this thing settled. And if you haven't sent the deposit yet, include that deposit also in the first payment. Anything else? Any other questions? It's closed. We're going.
It's reality.
Yeah, reality is kicking in. Yeah. Anything else that you want to add? Yeah. I mean, anyone else?
Nope, I think everything's pretty clear.
We are going to, since we are flying from, you know, we will be using local airlines. Local airlines means, I mean, these are all international airlines, but locally, flying from, you know, say, Singapore to Banda Aceh. I don't know how much luggage they allow us to carry, because these are like local, meaning it's only from the United States and Canada, and to United States and Canada, that people are allowed to carry 2 suitcases. It used to be 70 pounds, now it's down to like 50 pounds or so with the, yeah, but 2 suitcases. But everybody else in the world carries 1 suitcase, you know, as luggage, and it's 30 kilos or something like that. I can double check. Yeah, is that what you carried? No?
No, actually ours is allows more.
Ah, okay. I can't get special favors from these guys, because we'll be flying to Indonesia and Phuket and all these different places. So it's good to travel light. It's good to travel light. That doesn't mean that you should leave your laptop. I mean, it's good to have your laptop, but it's important to kind of like travel light. And in these places, we are going to mostly tropical areas. I don't think we are going to any area where you even need a jacket, actually. So that probably helps. And also, you know, sometimes, you know, you can also buy a few pieces of clothes, which are quite cheap there.
True.
Yeah, Kim, you agree?
Oh, I have a whole closet full of stuff from India, so it's,
Okay.
I don't know. It's all I wear when I'm there. I don't even wear Western clothes.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, most of these clothes that we wear come from Sri Lanka and India and so on. So, yeah. Huh? Yeah. So you can go see like what they're producing. Maybe those haven't really hit the markets here yet. Maybe they're just putting those things out there in the market much quickly. Yeah.
Before the fashion.
I think everybody should experience the joy of purchasing clothes there. I mean, it's just a completely different thing. It's not like you go to, really like a shopping center and pick out what you want. You go visit the tailor and they're picking off the fabrics and measuring you up from everywhere and every angle. That in and of itself was kind of an experience, but definitely one well worth it. But yeah, it's very warm. Obviously, for me, I guess I was just more comfortable in Indian clothes, just because actually they were quite a bit cooler than Western clothes. At least for me. But
right, that's great.
But definitely, you tend to overpack. You will not use half of probably what you do pack, anyways. So I guess even when I went before, I think I probably packed a little too much and didn't end up wearing probably 1/3 of what I did take. So.
And also in the previous times, students talk to each other because everybody doesn't have to bring the same thing like 20 times. That means so students talk to each other. Sometimes they even brought books. Let's bring one book each. Whatever, if we can exchange and kind of like read or something like that. And you may not like every book that everybody else reads, but I think gradually it might be good for you to talk to each other, and this is a place to talk. This is where we meet. The meeting, and get organized so that you don't necessarily have to carry too much. Again, we are not going on a hiking trip. Sometimes people have this feeling like, I need to pack everything in a backpack. That's not what we're doing, because is time up or what happened?
No, records.
Okay.
For some reason.
Yeah.
One question from John. He asks, is there any way to do a direct payment to the university, or do we have to send it by mail?
I can ask the university whether that can be done, but it's much easier to kind of like mail a check. Write to Ball State University and write the amount and sign and sort of like mail it to me and I'll collect. Yeah. There are two kinds of payments. There are two kinds of payments. Is it connected? Okay. There are two kinds of payments. One is kind of like for one payment is for tuition, and
We're back.
Yeah.
Hi. Sorry, we lost you there for a second.
It's okay.
Yeah, you dropped.
So two kinds of payments. One is for the university directly charges, that's tuition and so on. They'll bill for that, and you don't necessarily have to pay it right now because they'll bill for it. The other one is for the field study, and usually they ask me to collect that. But actually, if you don't pay, they'll start billing you anyway. But that has been the norm. So you can we'll double check for the remote students whether you can directly pay the university or what. Yeah.
Is he gone again? Oh no.
No, it's just be quiet.
Yeah, and going back, I don't know. I don't know whether you were dropped, Heidi and Kim, at that moment. I was saying, maybe we can actually organize. You guys can organize together what to bring, and we are not going on a hiking trip. Sometimes students No, sometimes students get really like, oh, I need this big backpack, which I need to buy so that, no, we will stay in proper places. Your things will be, you can carry a suitcase and leave it there. But you definitely need to have something for a day or two, some small backpack or something that you can use, because we might be going on field trips for like 3-4 days, at a time. So it might not be a bad idea to have something of that nature. And you can have a bigger one which you don't have to pack, you just take half of it. It doesn't matter. But that's the only time. But otherwise, we are going to real places. We'll be getting off and sort of like going to places where we stay, where you can keep the suitcase in a safe place and so on. So it's not necessarily a hiking trip,
So if we bring like our laptops, we could leave those for those couple days in that place too. Would you want us to carry that with us all the time?
We have to go and see. In some cases, you might have to kind of like take it. In some cases, you can leave it. But for the most part, you can leave them. For the most part, you can leave them. Yeah. Because we'll be staying in we will have a quote unquote home in all these places. Like for example, the longer project we do in Sri Lanka, we'll find a place, and sometimes what we do is when we check out, like in the middle of our Sri Lanka component, we'll be going to India, and say for example we stay in a place where they might want to use our space or our rooms or our apartment, wherever we're going to stay. I'm still figuring this out, and they might ask, pack everything into your suitcases and sort of like lock them and leave them here, and we'll take care of it until you come back.
Yeah.
And that kind of stuff can happen. We might have to pack our suitcases again and leave them and then come back and sort of like open them again, that kind of stuff. But usually we have a place, so we'll be coming back there. So we don't have to carry everything around. Yeah? Any questions? Any suggestions? Anything that you would like to see happen?
Actually, you said that people stayed longer in there, like after the trip.
Yes.
And then how would that work? Like, would we have to let you know now that we want to stay, or
That's several things can happen, because we have a ticket, and the ticket dates, the return dates could be changed.
Okay.
When we are in Sri Lanka or someplace, we'll get a travel agent to kind of like change. A lot of students, I understand, you can't make decisions right now. You'll be making some decisions later. That's fine. But the thing is, the only constraint might be, it's cheaper to buy a ticket for a month or 2 months, 3 months, or 6 months, or I think these tickets that we're going to have are like 4-month tickets. So if you want to stay for longer, you need, and still want to use the same ticket, you need to let me know, because otherwise you can't. You will be there and you want to extend. There was a student, the Capacia one, we came via London, and one student wanted to work in a firm, do an internship for 6 months. Then you can't, you can't use that ticket. It's not too expensive to fly back from London. So these are little chances that you might have to take. Otherwise I can do. If you can let me know what you plan to do, then I can kind of like adjust it for you.
Okay. I was just asking.
Yeah.
Sure.
And also, like if there's a big difference, like if there's a big difference, I might even I can let you know. Maybe maybe it's worth paying a big difference and kind of like making that change. And if there's a small difference, it's totally fine with me.
Were we still planning to go to New Orleans?
Yes, Kim. This week I'll be talking with Olin Dotson, the faculty member that you saw the other day. So we still haven't figured out how to do this, but I think it's going to be in December so that I can leave the January. I don't have to bother you in January. So that way, if you can.
Do you know when in December?
It seems like it's after the end of the semester.
Which is when for you?
14th.
Oh, we're the 19th. So.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we can coordinate that. I don't know how that all work for everyone, but that's the kind of plan. So that then.
Okay. Just if we get an idea, because we can always kind of arrange finals and whatnot around that, but not every class always has a final. So.
Okay.
So.
Yeah.
There's a question from Bruce. when exactly are we leaving campaign?
Right now, the departure date is the 20th of January. That's a question from Bruce. Yeah.
Okay.
And the return date is 8th of April. It hasn't changed so far. I mean, the airline itineraries match perfectly well with those dates that I had in mind earlier.
So basically, we're all going to convene in Chicago at some point and then leave there?
Yes, yes. And I mean, in past Capatias, we've had people join at different places. Some people went.
I just didn't know because I mean I'm on a major hub that goes everywhere, so it's just kind of like right here.
We are flying United. Since I have this grant from Uncle Sam, we are supposed to fly American Airlines. So we fly we fly United, and then most of the flights in Asia will be flying in Sri Lankan Airlines.
Co-chair, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So send me the dates that you are not, times that you're not available for the coming weeks, and we'll try to set up a better time. And I will have to talk with Jerry and the staff here as well. So send those as soon as possible. So I'll try to find a better time for the group. Okay. Thanks very much. Thanks, Jerry.
Bye.
Thank you, Hikayat.